So welcome. I'm going to be talking about, so this class has had a couple different titles. I wasn't sure when I showed up what the title was going to be. Basically, I'm going to be sharing with you tips on the most recent release of AutoCAD 2015, the last release of AutoCAD before that, 2014. That's about the first half of the presentation. And then whatever time I have left over, I'll just share some random tips that I think that you would find valuable. Okay? Sound good? How many of you are on AutoCAD 2015? Okay. Oh, pretty good. All right. How about AutoCAD 2014? Are you all on both 14 and 15? How about 2013? 2013, 2012, 2011, 2010, okay, 2009, I'll just keep going. 9, it's okay. It's all right. 2008, 2007? You guys are killing me. All right, 2000, okay. All right. We just need to give all our software away so you can be all in the same release, right? So this is a very difficult class for the poor translator to translate because it's very technical and it's fairly fast. So I hope that everybody can try to keep up, all right? We'll do the best we can. Let's put that right there. So as I mentioned to you, and now I wish that I had had this translated for you, but basically I'm going to be sharing with you some tips and some tricks to help you be more productive when you get back into the office. And I have tips in this presentation for everybody because I have some tips that I have to do with releases before even 2007. So we should be okay. Can we close that door? I'm not sure what's going on out there. So AutoCAD 2015, for those of you who were on it, and it looked like quite a few of you were, definitely looks different. AutoCAD 2015 has kind of this gray interface. And in case you were wondering why Autodesk did that, it's because studies have shown that looking at that big, bright white light and the contrast with the black is very hard on your eyes, difficult for your eyes. So to reduce eye strain, they changed the interface to be this cool gray color. And you will see that in other Autodesk products, and you will probably also see it in products that are not made by Autodesk because this is as a result of recent studies. Thank you. So just a few things to take out. All right, we'll do it this way then. So I'm going to kind of take you through some of the new features that have to do with the user interface inside of 2015. I'll show you how to put things back in case you don't like it. But I'm going to hope that you do. So let's go over to here. So here's the gray interface I was talking about. Just a couple of other things. You will see that the layout tabs are on the same line as the status bar, which is good because it gives you just a little bit more room, a little more drawing room. I like lots of drawing room. You will also see that you can customize the status bar in the lower right-hand corner. If you click on those 3 lines, which internally at Autodesk we call that the hamburger. I don't know if it looks like a hamburger to you, but for some reason they call it the hamburger. You can control anything that shows up on the status line. You can also do a right click. You can go into options and you can change the background back to the light color if you prefer. So we changed it to a gray color, but you don't have to keep it that way, which is easier to see. I think that's easier for you to see in here, right? So we'll leave it at that for now. Okay. Now, how many of you do not use the ribbon across the top? Anybody who doesn't like the ribbon? If you're in 2007 or 8, you can't use the ribbon. Some of you like to put it back to AutoCAD Classic. Yep. So I just want to point out that if you take a look at the workspaces, you'll see that AutoCAD Classic is not there. You can bring it forward with your profile, but by default, it's not there because we want you to use the ribbon. I can't imagine not using the ribbon now, but when it first came out, I didn't really like it very much, but now I love it. Because of, like, for example, if I double click on this, I can't really tell by looking at it what it is. What did I do to myself? Go away. But at the top of the screen, you'll see that it automatically modified the ribbon to only give me the commands that have to do with the PDF. So when you double click on certain things in the screen, AutoCAD automatically changes for you as long as you're using the ribbon. If I come in here and I double click on hatch, you will see that it gives me the ribbon just based on hatching. I love that. That saves me time. I'm a very lazy AutoCAD user. Right. So a couple of other things that I want to point out that are a big advantage to using the ribbon, at least in AutoCAD 2015. If I go to the Insert tab on the ribbon, and I drop down Insert, you'll actually see that all of the blocks that I have inside of the drawing automatically show up in the ribbon, which I love that. That's great. So I can just grab whatever I want, and I can drop it into place. So that is called a gallery. And if I go over to the Annotate tab, you will actually see that I have galleries for text fonts, for styles, for the multi-leader styles, table styles, etc., just so it's more visual than the way it used to be. Okay. Now, one of the reasons we don't like to make the move to the ribbon is because we have to figure out where all the commands are. So I wanted to show you, also very nice inside of AutoCAD 2015. You can type in any command. Design feed is a feature that came out a couple of releases ago. And almost all of the commands in help have a find feature. And if I click on the find feature, it shows you exactly where it is in the ribbon. So that should make it easier for those of you who do not use the ribbon to find the tools. If you're not on AutoCAD 2015 and you're making the move to the ribbon, you can also click on the big A in the upper left-hand corner, the application menu, and you can type in your commands here. So I could type in, for example, the hatch command, and it would show me exactly where it is in the ribbon, for those of you who are not in 2015. All right. Let's see, what else do I want to show you? Talked about the help, we talked about the galleries. Oh, let's look at a new tab. And we talked about customizing the status bar. So as I mentioned to you also, the layout tabs are in the lower left-hand corner now, so we have a little bit more room on the screen. You'll see that there's a plus right next to the layout tabs, this plus right here. You can click on that, and it will now make it very easy for you to add more layouts. Then you can rename them to what you want them to be. Eventually, you will run out of room, and they'll show up down there. You will also see when you first open AutoCAD that you get this new tab feature. You can turn this off if you don't like it. But this is a friendly way to open up AutoCAD and not just be looking at a blank screen. So this is a new tab feature. It features your most recently used drawing files. You can start a new drawing. You can get feedback from Autodesk. And you will also see that there's a tab here that allows you to look at a variety of videos to catch you up on the latest features inside of AutoCAD. Let's go back over. Got it. So inside of AutoCAD 2015, you'll also see that we added in line smoothing. I think that most of us are kind of used to whenever you have a diagonal line or a line that's just a little bit off of 0 degrees, how it's jagged. We kind of are used to that in AutoCAD. I didn't really think about it, but you would think we could actually give you a straight line that doesn't have jags in it. I'll show you what I'm talking about. And you see right there? Like, we're used to that. It shouldn't be like that. So in AutoCAD 2015, they added in an option, and incidentally, this is on by default, so you can make sure all of your lines are nice and smooth. And that's the default. So you don't have to ever remember to turn it on. But you'll also see that if I have a complex line type, like this guy right here, I'm in the viewport, that as you move it, as you edit it, or as you create it, you can actually see the line type. In the past, you would just get those dashed lines. So now it's very obvious. And in general, I just like the fact that it's very clear when you're selecting objects. Let's jump over to, is this the one? This guy. So we know if we go from left to right, we get a window, right? Once again, it's very clear that I have objects inside of the window, which I love. If we go from right to left, we get a crossing window. We're all very familiar with that. So now if you hold down the mouse key, the left button on the mouse, you get something new called a lasso that allows you to be very specific in how you select objects. That's by holding down the left button on the mouse. If you go from left to right, you get a window lasso. If you go from right to left, you get a crossing lasso. And if you take a look at the bottom of the screen, if you hit the space bar, you can actually go to a fence lasso. That means you draw the cursor through the objects that you want to select. Kind of interesting. It's called a lasso. You can turn that off if you don't like it. There's the lasso. Let's go to, how many of you work in 3D? 3D? Yes? Let's go to, sorry. So if you work in 3D, you're probably very familiar with the 3D orbit command. That's this guy right here. And when you do a 3D orbit, what you doing? When you do a 3D orbit, There we go. Sorry, I don't know why it wouldn't. You saw me, wouldn't let me click it. When you do a 3D orbit, it automatically grabs a centroid right in the center of the model. That's okay as long as you have a model like this. But if you had a model that was partially here and partially over there, it doesn't work so well. So there's a new option in 3D orbit. If you turn off enable orbit auto target, no way is she going to be able to translate that. Now, any place you pick on the screen becomes the center. Maybe I want over here to be the center. Or maybe I want the stairs to be the center. So you have complete control over what ends up being the center of the model when you do a 3D orbit. Okay, let's go over to get out of the command. I can't ever use it. So in 2014, they added quite a few new enhancements to the command line. And I'm sure many of you also use the command line. So we have the ribbon. Some of you still use the classic user interface with the menu or maybe with the toolbars. But all of us somehow along the lines end up using the command line. So let me just take a look at some of the new features that have to do with the command line that came out in the last release, which should make things a lot easier for you. Let's go to, all right. So first off, we'll see how this translates. If you spell something wrong, like there I've spelled line terribly wrong, AutoCAD will attempt to figure out exactly what command you meant. Us AutoCAD users are not known for our amazing ability to spell. You will also see that if you type something in, AutoCAD will look for any command that begins with that, ends with it, or is anywhere in the middle. So it does midstream searches. You will also find that AutoCAD 2014 or 15 allows you to type in content. For example, there's no command called door, but you'll see that it found a block called door and a layer called door. If I clicked on block, it would insert the door, door 1. Take a look at the current layer in this drawing file. You can see the current layer is equipment at the top. I can actually click on layers doors, and it sets that to be my current layer. You will also see that there are a lot of commands inside of AutoCAD that may not be quite the name that we would think of when it comes to other products. For example, if you were to say you were going to send your file to somebody, and you were going to take all the parts of the file and send it to somebody, most of us think of zipping that file or doing a zip command. But inside of AutoCAD, it's e-transmit. I don't know any other software that uses e-transmit. So you will see quite a few synonyms have been added inside of AutoCAD. For example, if I type in zip, you'll see that it does e-transmit. If I were to type in symbol, that's a common phrase inside of MicroStation, which is a totally different product, right? You will see that the insert command also shows up as an option. You will find that you can add your own set of commands to AutoCAD that maybe you like to use that AutoCAD doesn't recognize very easily. All right, let's take a look at file tabs. File tabs were added inside of AutoCAD 2014, which they'd been there a long time before that. So across the top of the screen, I have all of my open files. If you have 2014 or 15, this shows up. If you don't like the order, you can grab these and you can move them around. If you get too many, you can click on the arrows, just like you saw me do earlier to find a file. If you do a right click, there are some very nice options in there. You have the ability to close all of the files, except for the one that you clicked on, which is kind of nice. There's an option for copy full file path right here, in case you decided you wanted to send the path to your drawing file, maybe in an email. You could click on copy full file path. That would copy it to the clipboard, and then you could drop it into an email to make it easy for somebody to find your drawing file. Or open the file location will take you to the directory that your drawing file is located in. In case you're disorganized, I'm a little disorganized. Sometimes I can't remember the file directory that my AutoCAD drawing is in. You'll also see as I move my cursor over the tabs that it shows you the various layouts, which is very nice. I can actually move my cursor to one of the layouts, and you'll see that conveniently I can very quickly plot or print the layout without ever having to actually go to it, which is nice. That's just a preview. It doesn't actually move me there. And you'll also see, if you click on the plus, that takes you into New tab, and you can continue to add new drawing files. Let's close this one too. So I don't know if any of you, let's go to stairs, if any of you use model space viewports. Those are tiled viewports that only work when you're in model space. If you do, some of you, if you work in 3D, you might. I like to get to the model space viewports by clicking up here under viewport controls. You can set up the configuration that you want in this list. Or if you're a very good shot, you can can't have too much caffeine though. You can double click on that little dash, and it will actually take your screen, it will split it into 4 viewports. So you have a top and a right and a left and an isometric view. So some changes to model space viewports. You can actually control very easily the way they look by grabbing these gripper bars. You grab the corner, you can move a bunch of them at one time. There are tiny little pluses, which are very difficult for you to see, that allow you to add viewports. They're very small, hard for you to see. If you get too many, you can pull them together so that they meld together. But a lot of nice control over model space viewports for those of you who use those. All right, so most of us, if you are using the ribbon, we have to go to the Home tab on the ribbon in order to change your current layer. That's one thing I don't like about the ribbon. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Quick Access toolbar. That's this toolbar that's at the top of the screen, the only toolbar that's left over, really, inside of AutoCAD 2009 and 10 and 11 and 12, if you're using the ribbon. So you can actually take any tool, for example, the layer drop-down list, and you can right-click on it, and you can say Add to the Quick Access toolbar. And you can see now that I can very easily change layers without having to go to the Home tab in the ribbon. I can go to any tab, and I can always very quickly change layers. So you can do a right-click on anything in the ribbon, and you can add it to the Quick Access toolbar. Okay. You can also say Add More commands, and it will take you into an abbreviated version of the CUI. You can type any command that you want, and you can put that on the Quick Access toolbar. And this has been valid since AutoCAD 2009, so none of this is specific to 2014. So I can grab Erase, I can drag and drop it up in the Quick Access toolbar, and I won't be able, because of the resolution of the screen, I won't be able to select at the bottom. You can see it's off the screen, so it's going to call me names, but that's okay. All right. So we've had quite a few command previews that have been added into the software. We had a preview for fillet put in, a preview for offset. We had a preview for extend, or excuse me, for chamfer. And now we have some more previews that I think are really going to make our lives in AutoCAD a little bit easier. We have them for trim, we have them for extend, we have them for break, which I think is very valuable, and for match prop. We're going to take a look at that. We're going to take a look at a few other of these simple, small changes, but very powerful changes inside of AutoCAD. Okay, so let's go up here. So for example, let's say I want to go into the extend command. Okay, so now I know you can hit an enter and everything will become a boundary edge, but I'm going to select some very clear boundary edges. Okay? So now, if you notice, I get these previews. Saves you a little bit of time, saves you from having to do too many undos, just makes life very obvious as far as what's going to happen. So this is a preview for extend. Same is true with trim. And this time I will be lazy. I will just hit an enter to make everything a cutting edge. And then AutoCAD makes it very clear. You can see a little X that shows up. Incidentally, that's called a cursor badge. That makes it very obvious what I can trim, what I can't trim. You can see some things I can't trim. It won't give me the little X. It's just very obvious. Let's take a look at break. I don't know how many times you've gone into the break command, selected an object, and then forgot that the place that you select the object is the first point by which you're supposed to break it. Now it will be very obvious. I'm going to come in here and select this object to break, and you can see, look how obvious it is what's happening in the break command. If you use the break command, you will definitely appreciate that. That's the first point, and so on. The same is true for match properties. If I come to match properties and I say, I think I want to use that to match my objects with, now as I move around, it's very clear what's going to happen. Just by moving over the object, I can see the result. The whole idea is you don't have to do as many undos as you used to, which is a good thing. So just a couple other things. Let's talk about cursor badges. If I come go into the move command and I select a couple of objects, you can see I have a little cursor badge in the upper right quadrant that shows me that I'm doing a move. Let's do the same thing with a copy. Now I have a slightly different symbol representing a copy, but it's very, very clear what's happening. How about rotate? Same deal, you'll see I have a cursor badge that shows me that I'm doing a rotate, and it shows me the angle that I'm rotating in. Just a couple other things. If you go into the arc command, we'll do a center arc and just pick wherever you want that arc to go. We have learned over the years that arcs only want to go in a counterclockwise direction. If you hold down the control key, and nobody told you this, you would never know, you can actually now tell AutoCAD you want to go in a clockwise direction simply by holding down the control key. Okay. Let's go to just a couple other things. So before AutoCAD 2014, if you wanted to fillet a polyline to itself, it would not let you do it. This is a polyline. But you will see inside of AutoCAD 2014 and consequently 15, you can now, in fact, fillet a polyline to itself. It should not be a big deal, but it is. You will also see, by default, let's see, let's go down over here. By default, AutoCAD will no longer recognize the endpoint of an extension line as an object. If you've ever tried to grab the corner of an object and it accidentally grabbed the dimension instead, that won't happen anymore. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to go on the line command, and you'll see that it will not allow me to grab the endpoint of the extension line, only the object. If for some reason you don't like that, you can turn it off as well, but I think it's a big time saver. And I don't know if any of you work in isometric mode. Isometric mode? In order to change to isometric mode, you have to change the style of the snap to isometric, and then you move around from one isoplane to another. So there's a very nice new tool right down here on the status bar. Hopefully you can see that. It's called IsoDraft. Now I want you to look at the grid. I'm inside that grid. I think I'm inside that grid. Am I in that grid? No, I am. See, the grid right now is squared off. If I click on IsoDraft, you will see that it's now at an angle, and you can see that now I'm in an isometric plane. The isometric planes, you can move from one to the other by clicking in here, top, or right, or you can still do Control-E or F5, whichever you're used to, but it's much faster and easier to get into isometric drawing mode. I can go ahead and I can click on the IsoDraft tool, and it puts it back. Got all those. Got that one. and just one more of those. There we go. Let's make sure I put this back. So here I have a dimension. I'm going to click on the dimension. I want to add in, hopefully you guys know about multifunction grips. Very difficult class to translate. I'm going to do a continued dimension. Maybe today. And go ahead and add in my continued dimension. Now, if my drafting teacher saw this, she would have been very upset because I have a dimension that is one dimension style at the bottom, and then I did a continued dimension that's a completely different dimension style. And as far as I know, there's never any reason to do that. So with 2014 and higher, they added in a dimension variable called dim continue mode, and all of this is inside of your booklets. By default, it's set to 1, so you don't have to ever think about it unless for some reason you don't like it. So let's try that again. We're going to do another continued dimension. I'm going to come up here and add it in, and you'll see even though my dimension style, my current dimension style is 1 setting, it will always take a look at the base dimension, and it will always use that dimension style whenever you do baseline dimensioning or continued dimensioning. Okay? You don't have to think about it. It's on by default. That's a dim continue mode. Is it hot in here? A little warm in here. So we all do some type of text. A lot of changes in text in 2015, so let's take a look at all those changes. Hopefully, we will be cooling it down. So there's some M text on the screen. I'm going to double click on that M text. Because I'm zoomed out, it's going to make it very large. But you'll see that the M text editor now allows you to see through it. It's transparent, which is very helpful so you can see exactly, make sure that you're not running into any of the objects that are underneath the editor. Let's zoom up on it so that doesn't go like that. M text works a lot more like Word does. You'll see that it's very easy now to change your columns around. Just by grabbing the edge, you can grab the corner, you can grab the bottom. Just much easier to deal with as far as columns are concerned. You will see that it's also easier to work with numbers. In fact, if you do anything that looks like you want numbered items like that, I type that in. As soon as I hit the space bar, it will assume that it is going to be a numbered list, etc. Now, if I were to type in a 4 and hit the space bar, you will see I have this little lightning bolt. I think they're going to try to cool it down. Maybe. Yes? Thank you. We're going to try to cool it down so you don't actually fall asleep totally in here. So you will see on here that there are some options. If I were to click on Start, it would go back to the number 1. If I were to click on Continue, it would go to the number 3, for example. Or you can just say you don't want any numbers at all. So the same is true also for bullets. Almost anything can be a bullet. As soon as you hit the space bar, AutoCAD will assume that you're trying to do bullets, etc. You will find that fractions are easier. If I do like 1/4, it will automatically assume it's a fraction, but you can control that. If you've ever tried to do a date, for example, you would find that AutoCAD would try to stack it, and that may not be what you wanted. So you could say unstack, you could switch it to diagonal. Very easy to work with fractions. Also easy to work with subscript or superscript. I can grab that too, and you'll see that we added in superscript and subscript. Just some nice tools that we didn't have in the past. And if you ever accidentally had your cap lock on when you started typing, you will see that as soon as you hit the space bar, AutoCAD will assume that you made a mistake. It will switch the case, and it will actually turn off your cap lock for you. So just some nice features inside of mText. We also added in a brand new command that makes it very easy for you to line up text, called text align. So I can come in here and grab that text and that one. And then I can pick basically what I want to align it to, turn my ortho on, and all the text will line up. So if you take a look at text align, you will see a couple of things. You can tell AutoCAD you want to center the text or right justify the text. You can control the alignment. Or more importantly, you can go into options and you could say maybe you wanted it distributed evenly. Maybe you wanted it just to grab the Y. Maybe you wanted it to have a specific spacing between it that you can clarify yourself. But that's the new text align command. So just a few layer tips that we're going to talk about. I would mention that AutoCAD 2015 and 14 actually know how to count now. I don't know if any of you noticed in the past. I'll go back to that last one. Those numbers are not in line. It's like a very bad school class. But if you gave AutoCAD those numbers, that's the order previously it would have put them in. For example, it would have said 1. It takes a look at the very first column, so it would have said 1, and then 15, and then it would have said 30. So far, we're OK. But then it would see a 4, and just take a look at the first column, and then 4 would go next, which is not the way we count. And then it would do 50, and then it would do 6. So with AutoCAD 2014 and 15, now they would show up in a different order. The proper order, the natural order, as they would call it. And there's a system variable called sort order that controls that in case that's not exactly what you wanted. So if any of you ever wanted to print your layer list out? Yeah? OK. I'll show you a couple ways to do that, because we don't make it very easy. Or obvious, I should say. Do I have a lot of layers in here? I do have a lot of layers in here. Well, first off, I don't know if you know this or not. Did you know you could do a crossing window in layers? Go from left to right, you do a crossing window, would actually grab your layers that way. That's just a little bit of trivia. Now I'm going to do a Control A. If I do a right click, you'll see there's no copy command. But that doesn't mean I can't do a Control C to copy those layer names. And then I can go into Excel, hopefully it got them. And I can do Control V, and it will actually copy all the layers in there. And then you can control whichever columns you want. That's one way of doing it. Just Control C, just the way you would expect. You can also go into the layer dialog box, or excuse me, the layer command line interface, not the dialog box, by putting a dash in front of it. You can do a question mark, because you want to list out your layers. And some of you remember the old wild card of an asterisk, which means everything, right? All of your layers. You'll get a nice big list. You can do the same thing. You can grab that. You can copy it to the clipboard, and you can drop it into Excel, whichever you prefer. We'll take a look at layer merge in just a second. I'll bounce back into the dialog box. We'll take a look at that. Do any of you, do you know how to get rid of a layer that you can't seem to purge or delete in any way? There's a very cool, so I'm sure many of you have had a layer that you couldn't get rid of no matter what. You like turned off all the other layers. You tried to get rid of that layer and it wouldn't go away no matter what, and you don't know why. Maybe there was a space on that layer. More than likely, the layer is referenced inside of a block. And it's not like that layer really is a problem, like it's really slowing you down. But that's not the point. You want that layer to go away, right? So there's a command called laydel for layer delete. It used to be an Express tool, and now it's a real-life AutoCAD command. And laydel will get rid of any layers except for the 0 layer and the def points layer. But other than that, it doesn't care. So laydel, if the layer is referenced in a block, the laydel command will actually open up the block definition and take the layer out, redefine the block, and then it will delete the layer. Now that is power, right? Okay, just remember where there's power, there's danger, so be careful. Know what you're doing. So that's laydel. Let's take a look at lay merge. What time is it? How much time do I have? 10 minutes. Let's take a look at lay merge. So if you ever had multiple layers that you wanted to combine into just one layer, the lay merge tool is very helpful for doing that. She says, escape, stop it. There we go, just a little slow. I'm not even in the same drawing. That's how slow this is. There we go, let's try that again. So the lay merge command allows you to take multiple layers and combine them into one layer. All the objects go on the destination layer. They take on the properties of the new layer, and then the other layers are deleted. It's a handy tool. So they actually built that into the layer dialog box in 2014. So here I have 3 layers. Maybe I want to take Seambo 1 and Seambo 2, and maybe I want to merge them onto a totally different layer. You'll actually see on here is the list of all the other layers I could take those layers and put them on top of. We'll put them on just the plain old Seambo layer. And it comes back and it says, hey, the selected layers will be merged onto Seambo 1. It should actually say, about to delete the other 2 layers, but it doesn't, so just be aware of that. We'll say yes, and now you'll see I just have the 1 layer left. All the objects from the other 2 layers have now been placed on the destination layer. If you've ever had a drawing, let's go here, where the objects in the drawing were not on the right layer. They were not by layer. If you ever took an AutoCAD class, you're told the importance of setting things to by layer. If you take a look at my layer list here, you can see that everything is gray. However, if we take a look at the drawing, everything is definitely not gray. There are some objects that are cyan and some objects that are magenta. If I click on this object right here and I go over to properties, you'll see that it says it has a color assigned to it. It's not by layer. In fact, it also has a line type assigned to it that's not by layer. I could fix that pretty easily. That wouldn't be that hard to fix. But here I have a block. If I click on the block and go to properties, you can see that it says it's by layer, but in reality, those objects were not created by layer. So if you've ever had that happen, it's painful to fix it. You have to go into the original block definition, make changes, or what if it's a nested block, a block inside of another block? Well, that's going to take me a lot of time, and I already told you earlier that I'm a lazy AutoCAD operator, right? So there's a fabulous command called set by layer that will fix everything. Oh, let's do it all. Let's set by layer. Let me make sure I can get everything. I'm going to say I want everything to be changed, everything. So you can see everything is highlighted, right? Hit an extra enter. Do you want to change by block to by layer? Absolutely. Do you want to include the blocks? Absolutely. And now you'll see that everything in the drawing has been set to by layer. Much more efficient. So I think in interest of, although you guys get pretty excited about when I said free earlier. Have you been to the Autodesk, the application? Have any of you clicked on this X in the upper right-hand corner of the screen? If you have like the last 3 or 4 releases, you can click on that X. It will take you out to the Autodesk Exchange, which is the land of free stuff. I'll have to give it a second to load up. So the Autodesk Exchange is a place where anybody can post applications. They get tested, so they're not going to harm your computer. But you will see that the vast majority of them are free. Some of them you pay for. Here we have a US $1, $3. Some of them go maybe up to $100. But most of the apps are free. So if there's anything that you've ever wanted inside of AutoCAD that didn't go there, isn't in there, you should take a look up on the Autodesk Exchange and see if somebody wrote an application that might do exactly what you're after. It might not even cost you anything. It might be free. There's also some apps up there that are written by Autodeskers as well. And just so you know, you can actually do a search for a certain release, 12 or 11 or whatever the situation is, to have it do a search for any of the applications that will run on that particular release. So take a look. There's some good things up there. So I have to be quiet in 3 minutes, I decided. All right, let's just take a look at those 4 commands. It'll go very quickly, and then we'll move on with our lives. So let's go over to tips. This drawing right here. There's some fun things in here. How do you get more than one hot grip? Hold down the shift key, right? You can have multiple hot grips holding down the shift key, and then you could, stretch them any way you wanted to all at one time. Shift key. There is a very, very cool tool that most people don't use called QDim. See that little lightning bolt for quick dimensioning? It allows you to do a lot of dimensioning at one time. I can come in here and that lasso, it always gets me. I can say I want to dimension that, pull those up very quickly. I can do it again and grab this over here. I could say, oh, I want to do radial dimensioning. But it allows you to do a lot of dimensions very, very fast. That's QDim. A lot of people don't know about that. Do you ever have a single line text that you wish were a paragraph? There are wonderful express tools that allow you to very quickly make modifications to text. For example, I want to convert to mText. Express tools are fabulous. Now you can see it's all one great big paragraph, right, that you can modify. And I'll leave you on a fun note. We'll leave 2 and then we'll leave. So this is a line. You can tell it's a line. If you go into the pedit command and you select it, it comes back with this prompt. The object selected is not a polyline. Do you want to turn it into one? We've all seen it, right? We've all seen that. Okay. It's kind of a trick question, because if you say no, then it kicks you out of the command. And if I go into the pedit command, I think I know what I want to do. So you can get rid of that. If you never want to see that again, there's a system variable called pedit accept. If you set that to 1, it will never ask you that question again. Now if I go into pedit and I select the same object, it's a line, but it doesn't ask me that question anymore. It just gets rid of 1 click in your life. Okay, then the last thing I'm going to show you. I'm in the text command. Last week I was in Autodesk University. I changed the default sample text. This is just a fun one, to AU 2014. Did you know you can change the sample text? It defaults to ABC. Not very exciting. There's a system variable called mtjigstring. That is not in your book. But I'll show you where you can get this. And I can set it to, let's see, Istanbul. Now if I go into text, it changes. mtjigstring, that's just for fun. I have to get off the stage. Now people are standing around. I didn't have time to show you everything, but I did want to point out that if you go to autodeskuniversity.com, there are hundreds of free classes and sessions on tips, on all the different products, on building information modeling, on Inventor, on Revit, all different types of classes that are absolutely free. And they're very, very, very good classes. Doesn't cost you anything to take them. I've taught classes up there for years and years, and all of these tips are manifested up there. And hopefully you all got a tips and tricks booklet. I don't know if we passed them all out, but I don't want to take any home, so help yourself. You can also download a PDF version of it on my blog, autodesk.com/Lynn Allen. And I think that's it. That's it. All right, I have to let you go. All right, thank you for joining me, and have a great rest of the day. Thank you.